What have our traffic courts become and what do they really represent? We actually believe as a society that the courts and the judges are there to make sure that everything is being done right, it's fair, and the rights of the individual being protected. In traffic courts, it's exactly the opposite. The judges are there to collect your money. They don't feel they have to follow any laws, and in fact, as best as I can tell, they don't even know there's a uniform vehicle code or anything they're supposed to follow. They're doing whatever the local political entity told them is what they want done. They don't have any standards to be met. They don't understand that the very infraction you're being charged with has to have a procedure to establish its very foundation. They don't understand equal protection. They don't understand any of these things as a part of what they're doing, because in most cases, their entire court, their staff, the entire infrastructure of their facility, 90% of the time revolves completely around the collection of fines because it pays everybody's salaries. And everybody in that court system, even the next court up, relies on the same revenue source. How can you go in front of somebody who has a direct financial interest in finding you guilty? Worse is most of these courts in the hierarchy of the court systems in the states, even when something is obviously unlawful according to a law or a statute or an argument where it's not in compliance with federal law, the lower courts do not have the authority to rule on actually measures of law. They only have the ability to collect your money, dismiss your grant, or whatever. They don't have the ability to rule on issues of law itself. One case we had on photo enforcement in Nancy Levine in Oakland, California, where the court saw that what the state was doing in clear violation of state law. Then they ruled and took photo enforcement out of Oakland at the time on that case. But that's the only case I've ever been in where they actually ruled on the law, and that had nothing to do with federal law. That was just the state law. We have to figure a way to get the courts not to be financially reliant on convicting the people that are coming before them. In a system where we expect the court to be a neutral arbitrator, and in this case, they're nothing but an agent of the state whose pure authority is based on collecting the money. In many cases, in many states, they don't even have to be a lawyer. And then you have the situations where you've got a court on photo enforcement where it's not even a real court. You can't even cross-examine the evidence in front of you if the devices or the procedures used in the case comply with federal law, because it's not admissible. They've turned it into infractions. Arizona's one where you're technically not even allowed to challenge the validity of the traffic control devices or the procedures used to establish it. You cannot believe, I've seen them refuse letters from the state saying they're not in compliance. They go to great lengths to make sure that the law doesn't apply to them. I have cities where the law clearly says a traffic engineer must do this. It was never done. Then the court says it was done in their judgment, or in some cases what was never done, and it says it doesn't apply to them. The point is, there's no place in the system for remedy when the courts have turned into the equivalent of a criminal for-money enterprise in themselves to enrich themselves. When the city of Reno added a traffic enforcement division, I remember the DAs and the courts fighting over who's going to get the new staff and who's going to get the new position to handle the additional tickets. Then I had another case in Lake Tahoe where the local judge complained to the Nevada Highway Patrol that they weren't writing enough tickets, so he got the local sheriff to get the reserve deputies up to the right citation because the court was running out of money, low on money. I had another case in Nevada. I'm a Nevada resident, that's why all this is going on. I had another case in Nevada where the traffic engineering study was never properly done, And when the attorney who got the ticket came to me and I helped him with it, I talked to him about the engineering study and all this and the radar certification. And the judge simply told the attorney, we're not going there, counselor, because I own the radar and I know it's in good working condition and I bought it for the sheriffs to use. Where's justice? How in the hell can you live this system all over the country? Or the case in Virginia. Let me go one more time. I'm on a rant apparently. We go into case in Virginia on the 20 mile an hour over the posted limit, and the district attorney tries to get the guy to plead. He goes in and files his brief, and when the district attorney reads what the brief says, they don't want to go forward with the trial, so they set the trial for after lunch. The officer's sitting there ready to testify, and the district attorney goes in the case and says to the judge, the officer's not here and can't testify, so we're going to have to dismiss this one. Or the state of Pennsylvania, where the engineering study was barred from access so we could find out what it actually said, because the state was claiming federal law doesn't allow them to release confidential information like that, which is the very foundation of setting speed limits. The point is, everywhere I go and help people, I find the same stuff. They fight to the tooth and nail of every issue not to allow this into evidence, and nowhere is anybody following the actual law as written. The uniformity standards of the Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD, which is considered law in this country. None of it's being followed anywhere. And it's not because they don't know, they've never even been told. And this malfeasance is headed up by the U.S. Department of Transportation by design, not by accident, because they're the ones that have chosen not only to not acknowledge these things, they've actually driven a stake in the heart of safety, due process, and equal protection by design to protect the empire they've created internally of the end justifies the mean in their funding and the power they've created.